Hello everyone! Today we're going to be looking at a project presentation created by a teacher for her diversity training course, a course on how to instill diversity into her classroom. Now, it's not all that visually stimulating a presentation, as it's essentially a PowerPoint, but with my videos I'm more concerned about ideas than I am images anyway. And if what is being presented here is exemplative of what educators are themselves being taught these days, then it is another golden example of why there are many, many things to be concerned about in regards to mainstream education. All that being said, let's begin.
This is my presentation on white teachers in diverse classrooms.
White teachers in diverse classrooms. Well, just from that title, I think I can safely assume a couple of things. Number one, this is about race. Number two, our speaker will attempt to downplay that this is about race in some fashion. Number three, diverse equates to anyone who is not white. And four, due to their race, to a large or small degree, white teachers are incapable of relating to, let alone educating, diverse students. Golly, it's almost like I've heard this kind of shtick before.
During this presentation, we will discuss what exactly makes a classroom diverse, why diverse classrooms matter, what's the issue with a white teacher, and how we can make changes.
Well, now, I do appreciate there being an itinerary. So now, at least I know what to expect. All right, how are we to define diverse in this instance?
Webster's dictionary defines diverse as differing from one another or composed of distinct or unlike elements or qualities.
Okay, first, just a note that this weird super zoom in on the text is how the original video was presented. I wish I could do something about it, but I can't. Secondly, yes, this is indeed an accurate definition of the word diverse. However, I have a feeling we are going to quickly drift away from the actual definition and run aground on ideological bedrock.
NDT Resource Center says that having a diverse classroom simply means recognizing that all people are unique in their own way.
Unique in their own way. Okay, but the title of your presentation would suggest that you are grouping together everyone who is diverse as existing as an entity with which a white teacher must interact. So, is a diverse classroom made up of individuals? Or are they a group all connected solely by their skin color?
There are many ways a classroom can be diverse. We can have various learning styles, we can have various religions, races, abilities. So to define a diverse classroom, it is a classroom full of variety.
Yes, agreed. So, why bring up the teacher's skin color? How is that at all relevant in and of itself?
Okay, so why is diversity in the classroom so important? What is it about diverse classrooms that everyone is so obsessed with? Diversity in general is important for a multitude of reasons. One thing I personally love about the diversity we face in just our day-to-day lives is that every single person we interact with has something we can learn from.
Just a question, and I know it's one that I won't get an answer to. If everyone is unique in their own way, and the differences between us constitutes diversity in and of itself, then how is any classroom not diverse? Our speaker is speaking of diversity as if it is some kind of element or initiative that needs to be put into place, when, by her own definition, it is just manifestly present by default.
Every person you ever come across knows something you don't know.
Uh-huh. And the teacher's race matters then because...
Diversity in culture, religion, and ethnicity is a perfect example.
Wait. A perfect example. Diversity in culture, religion, ethnicity is a perfect example. Okay.
Of a way to learn those new things from someone else, and where better to do that than in the classroom. Diversity in the classroom is important because we can share our experience and thoughts as they relate to who we are and connect those ideas back to what it is we're learning. When we share our experiences, we're not only allowing others to see a little preview of who we are, but also giving others an opportunity to learn about our culture and where we come from.
Uh-huh. And again, all of that has what to do with the skin color of the teacher?
Especially as students, you're learning who you are and what kind of person you'll become. The more exposure we have to the various cultures, or even exposure to what it is our own ethnicities, cultures may be, through learning from our peers, the stronger we become in knowing exactly who we are and where we come from to carry that knowledge and pride into our adult lives.
Sure, but while socialization is indeed a big part of growing up, it is not the responsibility of the school or the teacher to try and impose any particular culture or identity upon its students, short of it being something like a private religious school, I suppose. But that aside, are we heading towards the implication that because a teacher is white, students are unable to associate their culture with a teacher who is white, and therefore being white is a problem?
We also benefit in our adult lives from culture being connected in the classroom, simply because when something relates to ourselves, we're more likely to listen and want to be a part of what's going on. And that's just human nature.
So, if a student is of race X and a teacher is of race Y, then the student will not pay attention to the teacher because the student is inherently racist. Is that what I am to understand?
We're almost selfish in that sense that we like to talk about ourselves. We like to see how is this conversation, how is this lesson going to benefit me? So when we connect to the content, we're interested, and when we aren't connecting to the content, we have no desire to immerse ourselves in that lesson, and as a result, students may miss out on skills they might need as an adult.
So, students of a certain color should only be taught by teachers of that same color because only like can or should associate with like, otherwise a student's education will suffer. So, school and staff should be racially segregated for maximum performance. Got it.
So, what's the problem with white teachers in diverse classrooms? Is the problem that they're white? No, not entirely.
Wait a second. Say that again.
Is the problem that they're white? No, not entirely.
No, not entirely. So, their being white is only a part of the problem. Well, I do hate to tell you this, but a white teacher is always going to be white. So, to whatever degree that being white is a problem, their being white will always be a problem, according to your own statement. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. Proceed.
The problem is that they're privileged and white, that they're coming into these Title I extremely diverse, heavily urban schools as first-year teachers because they'll jump at any school hiring.
They're privileged and white. So, all white teachers are privileged because they're white. Got it. And they're all first-year teachers and will jump at any school that is hiring. So, a brand new white teacher needing a job shouldn't take a job at a school that is hiring. So, where exactly should a first-year teacher go to find work? At schools that aren't hiring? I'm confused.
I can vouch for this firsthand. Being a first-year teacher, I applied and interviewed at many schools where I knew I wasn't prepared for the struggles I would face, but was willing to say yes to anyone who offered.
So, you are guilty of seeking employment. Okay. And again, I hate to tell you this, but most jobs will involve unforeseen difficulties and obstacles. No matter what a job description says, actually working somewhere new is always a learning experience. Rare is the person who comes into a new work environment and masters everything instantly. So, I really do have to ask, what are you talking about?
The issue is that first-year teachers are not prepared for what comes with teaching not only in urban school settings, but in diverse classrooms. In almost every reading so far this semester, the level of preparedness coming out of college has been a topic.
First-year teachers are not prepared for teaching in urban settings or diverse classrooms. Just to play devil's advocate, what if a first-year teacher grew up in an urban setting and is themselves non-white? And is themselves diverse? Or is the phrase first-year teacher just a handy euphemism for white teacher at this point in your presentation?
These student teachers are not being prepared for the cultures they will face or trained in how to incorporate these cultures into their classroom every day.
And what better way to learn such things than by doing them? Or are you suggesting there would be urban training courses for non-urban teachers that they need to pass before being allowed to teach in an urban setting? What exactly are you suggesting be done? And by the way, why is it that all of the diverse students are assumed to have come from an urban background? Isn't that a little, racist?
So, okay, you're white, you grew up poor, you fit in with and understand the low socioeconomic status students? That's perfect.
I thought that all white teachers were inherently privileged. How can any of them come from a background that is anything else?
So how are you going to connect with the students who are poor but also don't have parents who speak English?
Well, how does any teacher, whatever their race, handle students who don't speak English? And who says a white teacher cannot speak more than one language? And what says a diverse teacher automatically does speak more than one language? Is our speaker even listening to herself?
Or the students who aren't poor necessarily but practice a strict religion that affects their daily routines?
What does not being poor have to do with whether someone is strictly religious or not? And why is such a question only a concern for a white teacher?
How do you connect with the African American child with all the same struggles you had growing up, but it's different simply because they're black?
Well, how does a black teacher deal with an Asian student simply because they're Asian? Okay, do you hear how stupid that sounds? You are assuming one or both parties is looking upon the other with confusion or disdain simply on the basis of their race. You are assuming that of others. What does that say about you?
Can we connect with these students? Can we give them a space where they can come as they are and they will be safe?
They will be safe. Why would they be inherently unsafe with a white teacher?
Can we understand that our definition of on time for a class and the culture of a student says on time are a little bit different? Neither of you are wrong, but who's right and how do you decide?
The definition of on time for a class is going to be different depending on the skin color of the person. So, being late in general, or to class, or to turn in an assignment, or to finish a project, all of those deadlines need to be malleable because people are of different races. So, a white teacher needs to loosen their expectations of their students based on the skin color of their students. You know, I wonder if our speaker has ever heard the phrase, the soft bigotry of low expectations.
There's so much to think about in teaching in a diverse classroom, and as a white teacher who has only experienced a white lifestyle, you are not prepared.
A white lifestyle. Because all white people enjoy the exact same lifestyle. Because they're white. Got it.
And it's not only white teachers. It can be any teacher of any race that can have these struggles. But I think the issue comes up for white teachers so often because that's the majority of the teacher workforce. And the reason for that, as we've read, is that African American or other minority students aren't being encouraged to enter education as a career, mostly because of the experiences they had as a child, not feeling connected to their learning or not feeling capable of what they can do.
Oh, so it's not unique to white teachers, even though the entire focus of this presentation is on white teachers, but it could apply to teachers of other races, but there aren't that many teachers of other races because the mere presence of white teachers discourages diverse kids from wanting to seek careers in education. So, what's the solution, I wonder? Embark on an initiative to only hire teachers whose race matches that of their students? Because I really have no idea how else one would imagine to solve this problem.
So how can we make sure that our teachers are being culturally responsive and inclusive to their diverse groups of students?
Yes, please do tell us how we are to solve this problem. Well, not the entire problem, because, well, obviously, some teachers are still just going to be white, after all.
The easiest way to nip this issue, or at least minimize it a bit for the future, would be simply to train our teachers on diversity and how to incorporate it.
Incorporate diversity. Okay, see, there's that conflict of semantics again. We've already been told that everyone's unique selves inherently contributes to diversity in a classroom. And yet, diversity is apparently more than that. It is also a way of thinking. It is an ideology that stands outside the definition of the actual word. But okay, please do tell us how one incorporates diversity into the classroom. how do you train a teacher, especially a white teacher, to practice diversity?
Once you're in the classroom, talk to your students. Build relationships deeper than just Jimmy likes football. What traditions does Jimmy's family keep up? What can Jimmy teach us about his family and his culture?
Well, maybe Jimmy's family and cultural life isn't really a teacher's business, unless there is something going on regarding the child's behavior to be concerned about. If you want to have a class family tree project of some kind, well, fair enough. I did things like that when I was a kid. But outside of that, I'm not sure how appropriate it is to be interrogating kids about their families.
I love the idea of having show and tells maybe once a week. One student can present their family and the things that make their family unique.
Yeah, all right. Like I said, a personal family history project like that sounds innocuous enough. But, sorry, this has what to do with the color of the teacher's skin again?
And as you learn about each child and their culture, you can gear instruction to connect to who they are. Also, as you learn about their various cultures, you can learn about the different quirks that culture may have so that you can be aware of those when working with your students. Simple things such as eye contact or body language can vary so much from culture to culture, and you want to be aware of those things so that you can respond accordingly when different situations arise.
Body language and eye contact. A teacher, I assume a white teacher, needs to adapt their specific behavior towards each student based on their culture. A culture the teacher did not themselves necessarily grow up in. Why not just engage students as individuals and not as representations of cultures? Or is diversity training nothing other than a focus on identity politics?
Another thing I like to do with my students is figure out where they live and do a drive-by.
What?
See what their neighborhood is like, their home, their life outside of school.
I just came by to see if you're keeping up with your schoolwork.
You can even pick a bus and ride it with your student, explore their neighborhood while you get that precious quality time with the student.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. That sounds really creepy. Even borderline stalker-ish.
This will give you a small insight to what their life looks like when they're not with you and makes the student feel like $1,000,000 that you want to take time out of your day to just kind of hang out with them.
Yes, that is indeed one interpretation of how such involvement might be perceived.
Aren't you going to say hello?
Ultimately, a white teacher in a diverse classroom can be done in a positive way. It's important to remember that being white is not the problem, but seeing white is.
Being white isn't the problem. Seeing white is the problem. I have absolutely no idea how those two notions can at all be independent of one another. But we'll get to that in a moment. Before that, though, I would just like to push back a little against that claim. Because if I'm not mistaken, our speaker in fact made it very clear that being white is a problem.
Is the problem that they're white? No, not entirely. The problem is that they're privileged and white.
I know that I should not be surprised anymore, but I am. I am continually amazed at the cognitive dissonance of these racially based arguments, framed as being well-intended, that are trying so very, very hard to not sound racist, only to end up being more so.
What I mean by that is it's okay to be white. It's not okay, however, to see things only through your white eyes.
Skin color determines perspective. Race equates to an immutable mindset. White people all inherently see the world in a certain way. And the way white people inherently see the world is a problem. And that idea, in and of itself, is not racist. Got it.
Open your eyes. Put yourself in the shoes of those different from you. Step out of your comfort zone. Immerse yourself in other lifestyles. There is so much to learn from those around us if we're only willing to listen, and the benefits for our students are endless.
So, to sum up, the problem with white teachers is that their whiteness alone discourages non-white students from wanting to become teachers themselves. Their whiteness is an inherent barrier to being able to relate to students who are not white. Their whiteness means that they are privileged, even if they come from a lower-class urban background, and thus any non-white students are comparably inherently disadvantaged. And the teacher's whiteness also imparts on them an isolationist tunnel vision, incapable of understanding or being prepared for anyone who is non-white. So, do I have all of that? I was doing my best to listen closely, because by the mechanics of the world that our speaker has described, a black teacher with an urban upbringing is completely unsuited to teach a mostly white class in a suburban school. So, therefore, only like should be teaching like. I mean, that is the logic of this presentation, if you grant it any real logic at all. But this is how diversity training is telling educators to see the world, to assess themselves, their students, and other educators on the basis of their skin color. That some skin colors require special attention, while other skin colors can be assumed to have privilege. That some skin colors make for good teachers, and that other skin colors means a teacher is probably a racist. I don't know about you, but that kind of thinking is not something I would want following my children home with them in a friendly drive-by. Remember, I before E, except after C. But hey, what do I know? I mean, I am white. As always, thank you for watching.